Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And this evening we're joined by Grand Master Clive Harrison. So we've got Clive on the show. He's recently just been promoted to 9th Dan Grand Master. And we thought we'd just get him on and listen to his story. No doubt there's many. If you got to a 9th Dan, you've obviously been in the game a long time. So yeah, over to you, Mr. White, to fire off with the first question.
Yeah, so great to get you on this evening, Clive. Thank you very much for taking the time out. So really want to give our listeners and our audience, I suppose, a bit of an insight into you. So just give us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, your schooling, and normally that you tend to find that leads into how people get into martial arts. So over to you, Clive.
Okay, well, I was born in 1952. So I'm 70 in January. I started martial arts in 1972 when I was 20 in the Bruce Lee boom. And I did Kung Fu at the local Kung Fu school that opened up, as many did in those days. They were everywhere. And I was in that for about 5 years. It closed down. I went into Traditional Wodoru Karate for a few years. And then in 1979, on May the 10th, 1979, I joined the very first ever Taekwondo school in Worcestershire. My instructor was Don Adkins, I believe is now Grand Master Adkins.
Yes, yeah.
I'd never heard of Taekwondo. Somebody just said there's a demonstration going on at the local school. So I went along to have a look at it, and it just blew me away. Well, because Don hadn't had a school then, Dave Oliver brought some guys down from Warwick, and they put a demonstration on, and it was just amazing, absolutely amazing. And I thought, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. And I joined Don's class in the very first beginner's class on the 10th of May, 1979. I got my black belt on the 6th of March. 1982, there was no TAGB then, we were all in the UK TA. And then in 1983, the TAGB was formed. Don left to join the TAGB and become a founder member of that. So I left with him.
Clive, just taking you back then. Can you remember that demonstration? Can you remember what sort of what took place on that demo? Because obviously I remember those demos back in the 80s, and it was always jumping over people, smashing house bricks, smashing tiles.
That's what it was. That's exactly what it was. And I was very, very impressed. In all fairness, Dave's guys, they were excellent. And it certainly inspired me to join. And yes, it was what you said. A lot of breaking, a lot of flying kicks, jumping over people, which we'd never seen before. Breaking boards the other side and all this kind of thing. One-step sparring as well, with the flash, like a demonstration one-step with all the flashy. Looked really, really good, and I was really hooked from there.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because demos used to be the way, didn't they? Back in them days, there was no internet, and always, you sort of congregated in a park somewhere or a village fete, and it used to be Taekwondo demos and get all the students giving flyers out to everyone. But that was how you basically used to attract students in, wasn't it?
That's right. That's right. And you did attract them in as well. And the small advert in the paper could bring in 20, 30, 40 students. It don't work like that anymore.
It's certainly changed, hasn't it, with social media? Just keen to go back before the Taekwondo. What was it? I can imagine the Bruce Lee era. Everyone's into their martial arts, the Fist of Fury, the Game of Death, and all those good films started coming out, and people want to get involved. But what was it that caught your imagination with those type of films that got you into Kung Fu, first of all?
Well, prior to the Bruce Lee films, I came in from work one day and Dad said, there's a new program on the television. You ought to watch it. And I went, why? What is it? He said, well, it's like a Chinesey looking guy who fights with his feet in the Old West.
Oh, okay. What was that called? I can't remember now.
Was it Green Hornet, was it?
No, it wasn't. No.
Was it before that?
James Bond does that. That's karate. James Bond does that. And he said, no, this is different. This is different. Watch it. So I watched it. And I've actually got the full series on DVD and I watch it now and it's laughable. It's really, but at the time, wow, and I love the philosophy in it more than anything.
I used to watch that, and he never used to fight, did he? Until he was absolutely pushed right into it by a bad cowboy or a bad rancher or something like that.
Yeah, it's the philosophy that I used to enjoy, and the flashbacks to the temple when he was a boy and all. I used to like that, and and then the Chinese kung fu films came out, and there was B-rate kung fu movies like Snake and the Eagle's Shadow or Iron Fist or something like that. And it was on every single cinema all the way from Scotland down to Cornwall.
Yeah. David Carradine, wasn't it?
That was David Carradine.
Carradine, that's it, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Bruce Lee should have had that, and they turned him down because they said
he was too Chinese or too Asian looking.
Yeah, they turned him down.
Oh, crazy, eh? Well, it didn't hold him back, that's for sure.
No.
So, in the kung fu side, was it the forms or was it the patterns that got you interested, or the sparring?
Sparring was very raw. There was no safety equipment in them days. Everything was bare knuckle, and you've had many a fat lip. But I've always liked a balance of sparring and forms, sets, call them what you want, katas. I've always liked a balance of the two. I've never been a real patterns guy. I've never been a real fighter. I've tried to have a balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, quite often people, you get people that excel in one side, don't you? But I think it's important, as you say, it's important to be an all-rounded martial artist for sure.
Agreed. Well, in 1985, Jeff Smith brought the American team over, and they fought the TAGB squad in the now legendary tournament in Leamington Spa.
Yeah, the Geeko Spectacular. We were there.
We were there. We used to love them.
Well, that was when Charlie Lee and John Chung did the first ever musical forms. Mm-hmm. Well, they're anyway. And John Chung did it to Beethoven's Fifth, and Charlie Lee did it to the theme from Exodus.
Yeah.
And then he gave a speech, and he said, "We tried to develop the complete martial artist. That you can win in the forms, you win in the semi-contact, you win in the full contact, and you win in the street. And the complete martial artist." And that was the speech he gave, and I was really impressed by that.
Stars and Stripes Dobok on, didn't he? If I remember right.
Yeah.
I remember it. Yeah.
He fought Nasty Anderson.
Right, yeah. Tommy, was it Troy Darcy?
Troy Dorsey, Arjit Singh with a spinning back kick.
That's right, yeah. Saw Stars for years after that, I think.
Again after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good old events. My mum always used to wind me up because I remember saying to her, well, Taekwondo must be getting really big in Leamington because they've called a centre after the sparring, Leamington Spa Centre. She was like, no, you dipstick. It's Leamington Spa.
It's a nice.
So just talk us through then your moved on. You mentioned the demonstrations that inspired you. Can you remember that first lesson with Don Adkins?
Yeah, I've got a photograph. With a student altogether, and those would say 50% black belts from that very first. We trained at a place called John's in Wales. I can't remember all your first grading, but I can't remember. But I do remember my green tattoo green belt, so I got A passes, the only A pass I ever had. I mean, Jack.
Oh, I think we've lost you, Clive.
Yeah.
I've got you. I can hear you.
I'm just going to 2 seconds, Clive. I'm just going to pause. Hang on a sec.
So, Clive, can you tell us about that first class that you attended? What sort of activities did Don Adkins get you doing on that class?
Sweating. Yeah, a lot of it. It was quite an eye-opener, and to be fair, it was, you could tell straight away that there was a much more professional approach to the classes than what I had in the other martial arts that I've been doing prior to that.
Okay. So what sort of thing? A lot of repetition, a lot of low block, high block, reverse punch?
No. It was more just a physical one, the first one. More like a half-hour circuit. A lot of stretching to introduce you to the various different stretching exercises. And that's something else that I wasn't used to. And so I ached for a month after that. But yeah. So it was mainly physical and stretching the first time. I think you probably did a sitting stance punch, and that was it really.
Yeah, I think there used to be a lot more stretching stuff back in those days, didn't it? I think quite often it used to be 2-hour sessions where you don't really get that much these days. So you had a lot more time, didn't you? You had a lot more time to do get your sparring in, get your patterns in, get your line work in, get your 20, 30 minutes of flexibility.
Yeah, well, in those days, of course, we were in the UK TA. So officially, and the official line is you weren't allowed to spar till you were a blue belt in those days. And even then you had the little karate mitts.
Little bumper mitts, yeah. Little red and blue bumper mitts. A little shin guard that barely had any padding on, and the instep.
If you were posh, you had an instep.
Yeah, and then when you're black belt, of course, you could wear the full safety equipment then.
Okay. It was so long ago. I can't remember. The protocol with that.
I don't think we ever paid attention to the protocol like really at those days. We were just there to train, do what we were told. And I always remember my dad. He was quite peevish when I was younger, and he actually bought me my first from Force. Remember the old Force Sharma?
Yeah.
He bought me my first set of sparring gear for my birthday. Always remember it, feeling king of the hill going into the first class, but it still didn't stop me getting kicked around the head with someone that didn't have sparring gear.
Yeah. I mean, your dad was like a legend, a legendary fighter in the TAGB, and rightly so. And I can always remember the first time I ever sparred him was at Nutter's Night, and I was a black tag and Nutter's Night at Warwick with Dave.
Yeah.
I partnered him. And I always used to watch him in the tournaments. And if somebody hit him a little bit hard, you'd see a big smile come across his face. And then that was it then, game on. And I just clipped him with the very first kick. And the smile come across his face. And I thought, oh, no, I'm going to get absolutely hammered now. And he didn't. He was a perfect gentleman. Perfect gentleman. It was a pleasure to spar him. I always remember that. I was a black tag at the time. That would have been early 82.
Right, yeah, it was a challenging time on that Friday night, because you got to spar everyone, didn't you? Start at the top and then work you all the way down. I mean, I was probably there in the same class, so I used to attend them all. And one of the probably few juniors that used to do it that in those days. And I remember being kicked from one iron radiator to the next.
To avoid Mick Ford.
Yeah, exactly. Nicest school teacher you'd ever want to meet until he put a dobok on.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, nicest pie till he put his spine equipment on.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, I do remember getting hit a few times by him actually.
Yeah.
So, so talk us through. So, obviously in martial arts, people tend to, we mentioned previously, gravitate towards patterns. You did a bit of everything. What were your competition days like? How did you get on? How did you find the competition side?
Well, I was pretty useless. I never won anything until I got to black belt, funnily enough, and then I won one or two things. Nothing major, just a local national sort of thing. But it wasn't long before I opened up in Gloucester, because that was 1982 in September. Don had already opened it up for the first 3 months, and he didn't think it was going to work. And of course, with him living in Leamington,
So a bit of a trek down the M5.
yeah. So, and he said, and I was actually fitting the wardrobes in his bedroom, and he said, "Do you ever fancy, having your own club?" And I went, "Yeah, really, yeah, certainly." He said, "Well, you can have Gloucester if you want, because I don't think they're really into Taekwondo in Gloucester. I don't like it very much." And so I took it off him in September 1982.
And how many students did it have at that time?
Don had probably about a dozen.
Okay.
He said, "Come through the first grading for you, and you can take them on from then." I went down with him to one class. He introduced me. Get on with it. There was none of all these, instructors
courses. No.
It was one class. This is going to be an instructor from next week. Get on with it, guys. And that's what I did. And I put an advert in for a beginner's class in the local paper, and I had 27 start.
Yeah.
And then it just went through the roof. And I had some amazing students in those days, people like Mark Weir, Neil Williams, real top fighter, Steve Pearson. We had a great team. And I had many years at Gloucester Club with real top competitors. And I'm proud of that. Proud of those guys that I helped come through.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice, isn't it, as an instructor, when you look back over the years and you see some of the talent that you've had, or you've nurtured, or through the early ranks of Taekwondo, and then quite often they go off and do their own thing, don't they, or go off and take up different martial arts later on. But it's just nice to know you've had some sort of influence, I suppose, on their life.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, as everybody knows, he went into the cage fighting.
Yeah, we've had Mark on the show. So
he was pioneer of UK ITC in those days. Ultimate Fighting Championships,
yes.
UFC.
UFC,
yeah. But I had him for 10 years, and he was an amazing guy, absolutely, and a lovely bloke as well, which makes it even better, But amazing competitor. I think that no matter where he went, if he'd have gone to karate, he would have been a top guy. If he went to jiu-jitsu, he would have been a top guy. Look, I was just lucky that he came to me.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, so back in those days, what do you think drew the crowds to your school? Word of mouth? People looking for something in the area?
Yeah, well, every time that, we went to competitions, the guys would bring back loads of flipping medals, and we'd always bang them in the paper. So almost every month I was in the paper for one thing or another. And I got to be quite well known in Gloucester, in the Gloucestershire area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in those days, it was like 80% of your beginners were blokes who wanted to compete, wanted to fight. In those days, nowadays it's more like 80% families.
80% families or children.
Yeah, children. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah, I enjoy teaching kids, not kids classes, because I'm with the parents and that.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy teaching families. It's a different style of instruction. You can't teach how we used to years ago. Health and safety go through the roof. But yeah, in those days, it was just blokes who wanted to fight. And we had a good competition team, and we used to enter all the competitions. in the early TAGB days.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard when when you've been around those days and you can remember those days, because you want to almost relive them sometimes through your students. But times have moved on, haven't they? Times have changed, and you get there. I know I have the same challenge in my own club when I've got everyone lined up. Like, come on, guys, who's entering the British, or who's going, who's going to, and then you get like 5 hands. I'm like, what? Come on, you lot, get your stuff on. No, it's too far, or we're too busy that weekend, or we've got other commitments, and okay, that's just the way it is now. But back in the good old days, everyone would put their hands up, and you would put on extra classes specifically for that event, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a different world. I mean, the closest I got to doing that sort of thing again was when I taught the RAF in Innsworth in Gloucester, and being squaddies, of course, they just wanted to be beasted. Well, that was right up my street. You want it, mate, you can have it. And it was like taking me straight back to the old days again. And the harder I beasted them and drilled them, the better they liked it.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with families and things like this. It's a different type of instruction altogether.
It is, and you think there's, I always say to the families, start with me, and I'm a very much a family club. There's not many sports, is there, where the children, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and a mum and a dad can all do the same sport together on a Saturday morning or a Friday night or a Wednesday night or whatever, and go through the same syllabus, train together, practice for their gradings together, and then reach black belt together. And it's great when you see it happen.
Yeah, it really is. I had a black belt, well, when I took my 9th dan last weekend, and I had a family of 2 black belts, mum and dad, and 2 black tags, the kids, and they all graded together, and it was lovely to see. Brilliant. And they loved it as well, and the parents were over the moon with it. The whole family graded together, and their kids achieved black belts on the same day as their parents achieved another dan grade. But they were, and it was, I say, something they can do together. And there's not a lot of sports that you can do that. That's one of the advantages of doing martial arts and with families, because it's virtually the same syllabus, and they all learn. They all learn together, come through together, grade together, and it's lovely. I like.
Sorry, just pulling you back, I suppose, to to your. You obviously mentioned your 9th dan. Can you remember who graded you for your first? Oh, sorry, I'm sure you will remember. Talk us through your first dan grading. We all remembered our first black belt grading, right?
Right. My first dan grading was in the UK TA with Riki Ha and Grand Master Don, as they call him now. And what happened in those days were, between your black tag and your black belt, you had a 3 months pre-grading, 6 months between black tag and black belt. But in that halfway through, you had a pre-grading in those days. And myself and a guy called Kevin Tivernan, we were the highest students. The others had either missed gradings along the way, or fell back a little bit down the line. But me and Kevin we took out all our grades, and so we were like the senior students in the class. And we've both failed. We both failed our prelim. And Don actually, he said to Master E, he said, "Look, I need black belts," which he did. His clubs were growing well. He needed help. He needed a couple of black belts in there to help him with the club. And Reese said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If those guys come up to Glasgow, stay the week, train at my academy at Renfrew Street, every day, every afternoon and every evening, if they do that, I will let them grade at the weekend." So that's what we did. Me and Kev went, and Don, because Don was grading for his 3rd dan at the same time. He was 2nd dan then. Yeah. We 3 of us went up and stayed up in Glasgow at some grotty digs. There was more water coming down the walls than there was in the flipping river Tyne or wherever it is, or whatever the river is that goes through Glasgow. And that's what we did. And then we graded at the weekend. And luckily, the three of us got through. That was on the 3rd of March, 1982.
So what sort of training did you have to do in that week then? That week leading up to it, how intense was that?
Very, very intense. I was looking forward to it actually, because I thought I'm actually going to see Grandmaster. Well, Master he was then. He was 7th Dan, I think then. Going to see him do something, and I thought, he's going to be doing something. He might even get to partner him, or something like that. Not a chance. Chance. He walked around with a tracksuit and a clipboard, and that was it. That's all he did. But and that was the first time we were ever introduced to plastic boards as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever seen plastic boards used, because in the gradings before, you used to have piles and piles of wood, 500 people or something in those days. And in Glasgow, when I took my first Dan, that was the first time that I ever got to hit a plastic board.
And how did you fare with that board? Because I know, certainly when I was when I took my black belt at 10, I think we were breaking pine, the old pine boards.
That's all pine.
Yeah. I remember punching it and not hitting it straight, and it bowed, didn't break, but it bowed. So I hit it again and it broke. And I remember for my second Dan, we were hitting the plastic boards. And
come on, Jackson. We all know it was balsa wood that you was breaking.
It wasn't balsa wood, Gavin. It was pine back in those days. And I've got the scars on my knuckles to show it, and the sore wrist still today at the age of nearly 50 from punching boards when I was 10. But
plastic boards, I much prefer wood.
Yeah, so I think the plastic boards are less forgiving, aren't they? You've got to be more precise, and your power is, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant, but it's the precision. Yeah, and your foot position that really counts with the plastic boards. With pine, if you've got enough power and you've got a good foot position, you'll go through it wherever it is.
Well, he got these brand new black plastic boards straight out of the cellophane wrapper. Straight out. And that was it. I'm not two black boards on the holder. Nobody broke that day.
I can imagine.
No. Oh, I think he reduced it to 1 for the jumping kick, and Don, I think if my memory serves me right, he had to do jump and reverse turning kick, and he broke it with his right leg, but he didn't break it with his left leg, which I don't blame him actually. It's it's a hell of a technique when you got that thing 6 foot in the air.
Definitely.
Yeah, them were the gradings. So that was your first Dan. So second Dan, third Dan. God, we can go on, couldn't we? I suppose what was your most memorable black belt grading or Dan grading?
All of them. I can remember most of them. I know the second Dan grading, we'd left by then, and we'd formed the TAGB, and we'd got Heel Chow over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were grading with Heel Chow, and I've got a picture of me. I think Ron Sergiu was on the same grading. I think he was going for 5th. I think it was 5th. It might have been 4th, but I think it was 5th. Mark Berry. God, there's a few of them on there. I can remember. Bob Lenton was on there. I was on there. But on the Saturday, we had to do a seminar with Heel Chow and then grade on the Sunday. Well, on the Saturday, I was getting changed and I left my black belt in the changing room. It disappeared. I hadn't got a black belt to grade for my second Dan. So Don lent me his third Dan black belt. So I actually wore Don's third Dan black belt from a second Dan grading. So I'll always remember that one. Yeah. But my 8th Dan was really tough, really, really tough. And I went blue and they had to stop the grading and take me outside. They thought I was going to pass out. It was really, really hard.
So who graded you for obviously the later gradings then? Who was the examiner?
Well, for my 6th Dan It was the GTI panel under Grand Master Hopwood. The 7th Dan was Grand Master Hopwood, my 8th was Grand Master Hopwood, my 9th was Grand Master Hopwood. Riki Ha was my 1st, Heel Chow was my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th under Heel Chow. So every one of my gradings was actually took by a master or a grandmaster. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good going, isn't it?
Yeah. Proud of it. Proud of it.
Yeah. And you can remember all your patterns, which is more than I can do at the moment.
Yeah, after the all 24. They say 25, but I refuse to do GJ. I will not do GJ. I will not teach it. It's nothing against the pattern, but it was the reason that it was put in. Wrong, and I don't agree with it. And anyway, that takes out the meaning for 24 patterns then, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So, you know.
Okay, so now you've got your 9th Dan. What's next?
Well, there is nothing else, is there? Grading wise, that's it now. It's took me 42 years to get that. But I don't know. I'm very heavily involved with the ITC now. I'm like a technical advisor for them, along with Grandmaster Liversidge. So I help out with the ITC a lot, and I'm quite busy with those guys. But now COVID's out of the way, there'll be a lot more stuff coming on, you know, seminars and courses and that, which I'll be involved with, which COVID sort of put a bit of a block on that over the last couple of years.
Yeah, how did you fare? How did you fare over the COVID lockdowns and everything else?
I managed to do quite a few lessons outside, because we got a nice countryside centre, not only a couple of miles away from the house, and there's like big fields, huge fields there, and so we used to have open air sessions there, which kept the clubs ticking over. And I know a lot of clubs have closed down because of COVID, which is sad. And people have lost loads and loads of students. Me personally, I've lost about 3, and I gained, when we restarted, I've gained about 15. So it hasn't really affected me student-wise, numbers-wise, or anything like that at all, COVID.
Yeah, it's been challenging. It's definitely been a challenging situation for our industry, for sure. I think it's made instructors really have to think outside the box with their teaching.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I did is I put a letter out to all the students saying, cancel your standing orders if you wish.
Yeah.
And so 2/3 of the students said no, and they just kept the standing order going all the way through it, which, you know, massive help for me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that, isn't it, where students, you know, they're training, and ultimately they want to come back to continue the sport that they love. And if there's, you know, if everybody cancelled their payments, there would be no club to come back to quite often, you know.
It was only fair to give them the option.
Yeah.
Most of them decided not to, which was nice, you know, for me. Very grateful for that.
Yeah. So just we're drawing down towards the end of the interview now, Clive. So, you know, you're one of the few 9th Dans that have taken gradings all the way through, from your 1st Dan all the way to your 9th Dan. What was it that inspired you to do that? Because a number of organisations, they allow you up to 5th, 6th Dan, and then you have the option there. So why did you take the option to continue grading?
Sorry, Jack, say again.
So I'm just keen to understand why you took the option to continue grading, because a lot of organisations, you normally grade up to about 6th Dan, and then you're awarded your 7th, 8th, and 9th. So, but you've obviously chosen to grade all the way to your 9th. What was your motivation to do that?
Tell my students they have to grade, and I don't believe that I should tell them to do one thing when I take the easy way out, doing it the other way. I always sort of look at it as like the old Pocahontas syndrome, when she's canoeing down the river and all of a sudden the river splits. And she got smooth waters the one side, rough waters the other. Which one do you take? Well, I chose to take the rough waters because I think a martial artist should continually push themselves if they're okay to do it. Because by the time you get to ninth dan, you know, a lot of us, like I'm 70 in 3 weeks' time. So, you know, age catches up with us. I've been really, really lucky. I've kept my health and I've been physically able to do it. So if I'm physically able to do it, why shouldn't I? And set the example for students. Why take the easy way? But that's only my opinion.
Yeah, and I think actually having that as a goal is probably something that probably made you kept your health even better and made because it gives you something to focus on, something to keep training for, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it ain't the grading so much, it's the build up to it and the benefit from the training building up to that grade. When you kick off like 2 years before your grade, you start to build up a little bit for it and gradually pick it up. And it's the training that's as much important as anything, not necessarily the end result, but that's still nice.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, we always say to our students, the difficult bit is the lead up to your black belt, isn't it? It's the extra hours you've got to put in. And if you do that preparation and you're prepared, the grading will actually be quite easy.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Preparation, everything. I'll tell you, I learned a hard lesson off Dave Oliver. I'll never forget it. We were fighting in the black belt team championships, and in the finals, we came up against his Warwick team.
Mm-hmm. Legendary Warwick team.
On paper, we should have won easy with the team that I'd got. We should have won it, and we lost on a deciding fight at the end. And Dave Oliver came up to me after and he said, you're the reason this team lost today. You didn't prepare them quite well enough for it. He said, preparing to fail is failing to prepare, preparing to fail. And he was right. And I went straight in the changing rooms after and apologized to the team. I said, I'm sorry, guys, it's not your fault, it's mine. I didn't prepare you as well as I should have. And I learned a hard lesson that day.
Yeah. Well, when you think back to them days, going back to Dave Oliver's squad training sessions on a Saturday morning, there weren't that many people that could make it out of there alive, to be honest.
The warm-up was 2 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah. If you could make him through them, you could fight anywhere, couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I used to do that, and I can remember getting out the car and crawling up the stairs on my hands and knees to go to bed when I got home. You know, it was brutal back then. And you did get the chance to spar with all the guys in the squad and everything, you know, and it was hard, but it was great training. It really was.
Yeah, I've seen many a grown man cry at those sessions on the way out in the bar afterwards. Anyway,
door open, out, spew up, back in again.
Yeah.
Good days.
So I suppose final question then, really, Clive. I mean, we are the motivated sorry, can't even get my words out this evening. Motivated martial artists. You know, it's clear that, you know, you've obviously, you know, you've been in the martial arts game a long time. You've not really had any breaks. You've been in it all the way from your 20s. What's the, if you could bottle it, I suppose, if you could bottle that one thing, what's that one thing that's kept you motivated all these years?
Cool. The old adage would be students. Keep training students to get the best out of them if you possibly can, and seeing them achieve either tournaments or gradings, and that's a great motivator. If I'm completely honest, the reason that I took up martial arts is one of the reasons why I continued through martial arts, because we all have ups and downs. You know, when we go home and think, oh, I can't do this anymore. You know, I've had more times than I care to remember. But the thing that I'm pig-headed and I'm selfish, because to me, one of the reasons I took up martial arts and kept going in the martial arts is because I honestly believed it was great for your health and your fitness, and you keep injury free if possible, because I wanted to do so many things in my life, and I still do, places I wanted to go, people I wanted to meet and the things. And I thought, if my body gives up on me, then I'm not going to be able to do those things. But if I can keep myself fit, then I stand a good chance of being able to do all the things that I want to in life. And touch wood, that's happened so far. And that's what it is. It's selfish. I wanted to do things. I wanted to achieve things in life. I wanted to go places. I love traveling. I wanted to meet people. I love history. I wanted to go to these places like Egypt and Mexico, where all the pyramids are. And I've managed to do that. But if I'd have let myself go, I probably wouldn't. A lot of kids that I was at school with, they're no longer with us. And sometimes I can see some of them when I walk down the road, and I'm thinking, God, man, you look your age.
Well, it's people that are 30 years younger than you look, in worse conditions sometimes, don't they?
Well, next year is my 50 years in martial arts, because I started in 72. So next year is my 50 years in martial arts.
That's
some
achievement.
I'm okay. I feel good. I feel fit. The last tournament I competed in was just prior to the lockdown, when I entered the Wuma Worlds, and I took silver in the black belt high grade patterns division, and I took silver in that. So again, I just love to compete. If you win something, that's great, but I just love the competition side. And even I was 69 now, so I would have been 67 then. Last time I sparred in a tournament was in Nita, so that would have been probably about 8-9 years ago, something like that. Was the last time I sparred in a tournament, and I've still been in my 60s.
Yeah, no, good on you. That's very, very inspirational, and I think you're right. It sends a good message. If you can continue to keep active and fit and flexible, which obviously martial arts is all about being flexible, then it does help you with your mobility, doesn't it, as you're getting older? Yeah,
use the martial arts as a tool to keep yourself fit. And the fitter you can keep yourself, the more things you can achieve in life. Don't always work. I recently went to Steve Babs's funeral, legend from the Low Guard days.
Yes, yeah.
It don't always work, but it has for me. And I know it has for Mark Weir as well, because for a guy getting towards 50 now, he looks like a real spring chicken and still moves like one.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I would like to come across him in the ring still today.
Yeah, awesome guy.
Clive, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here this evening and talking to us. It's been a great insight and a real interesting journey into your martial arts career. So thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us.
You're very, very welcome. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Clive. Take care.
Bye.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.